I'd like to actually go back to my colleagues in the studio here. We have Madame Zizinga Betty, an amazing lady who did incredible things in her community. One of the things that actually became a problem during COVID was actually access to energy, fuel. People did not have energy, fuel, people could not cook. And they became very creative. I don't want to say how they became very creative. But Betty Zizinga here is one of those people at the forefront of making sure that her community benefited, even when it threatened competition. The other thing that actually came out was that she lost a market. There was a small market that came in, but during COVID, like many other people, she lost a market. And then she had staffs. She had a community, she had children. How did she manage to support her community, to support her neighbors, to maintain her business, and to support her staffs? When she talks, that is what she will be telling us about. Welcome again. And then we also have Madame Olivia Makumbi, retired lecturer from Ndejje University. And she comes from a community around Nansana municipality, but not Nansana, I think it's Wabitembe. She'll tell us more about it. She's an amazing lady who looked at a whole community, who looked at the nutrition challenges in a community, the lack of food. She'll tell us what happened. She will be here to tell us the story, but I will not go to that now, to what they did. I'll for now ask them what they think about the issues of movement, the challenges. Were there people in their communities that delivered on the way? Was there a time they couldn't access transport? Do they think it could have been managed differently? And I would like to start with my immediate neighbor, Madame Olivia Makumbi.
Thank you very much, Madam. People in Wabitembe suffered a lot during COVID. First of all, nobody had prepared for it. So it sort of just came. And there were no movement, there were no border, there were no taxis, and we used to move on foot from Kawanda to Kawempe. At least if you have if you can access some little money there in a bank, then you walk back. But those were the few who were employed. The others, and that is most of the women, didn't have any access to money, to food, even for vegetables and everything. So it was very bad.
Did you get an experience where, for instance, a mother delivered at home, or those kinds of issues for lack of transport?
Yeah, such instances occurred because we are not very far from the main road, but we are far from Kawempe, the referral hospital for women. And we had a number of ladies, wives who delivered at home. Fortunately, we have these, the local midwives. I don't know.
Traditional birth attendants?
They are there, and most women make them because they were the nearest. Fortunately, they are not so expensive, but some of the mothers who had complications, and that is where the problem was. Fortunately, that time, we had an ambulance from history of Kasuli.
Hey, congratulations, especially since you provided an ambulance.
This time it didn't come back.
Oh, okay.
But we are still in office. It didn't come back. But there was an ambulance there.
Oh, his term has not expired.
No,
yeah,
it hasn't expired. So his ambulance actually killed.
Wow.
There was a lady who used to drive it around. So you just ring, and this lady would drive it. You pay something, it wasn't much, but it helped.
I think it was also a great idea to put a lady in charge of driving, because she would understand issues of emergencies of women going to deliver. Mm-hmm. Not that the men don't understand, but I can imagine
the women understand much deeper than the men.
Mm. Oh my God, okay, what an experience. Betty, what happened to your community? How were the issues of movement? And
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. As they have told you, I'm Betty Zizinga Kaddu. I'm the founder and managing director of Bristol West Limited. We make sustainable fuel, which is smokeless, it's long burning, and it is good for the environment. What happened in our community, I don't think is very different from what happened in many other communities. Actually, most of it I think I watched from media. I did not have a direct incident in the neighborhood, but I know how challenging it was for families to access healthcare. The one that really came directly to me was a relative who had to be hospitalized. And then when we had to visit them, because there was restriction in terms of movement with the vehicles, we had to walk a bit of a distance to access her at the hospital. But I can imagine what many other people went through, especially those that had emergencies, and especially like for women who are expecting or had more emergent issues to attend to, having to access permission through an RDC and then having to go over the roadblocks with the LDUs. It must have been a very challenging time, and from what I was able to see in the media, it didn't look good. It didn't look good.
Oh, thank you very much for sharing that experience. I think I would also like to share the views, because what kept also coming out for a lot of people is that the people who had these offices, like the RDC's office and RCC or the respective offices, did not actually care for the people, did not do their best. But that is what we think until we actually also hear from there what happened, what was it like being in charge of movement at a time where people had cars but were not allowed to use their cars. People had actually borders, but you were not allowed to carry people. So how was it like? It's very sort of like challenging if you are, for instance, talking to the person who lost a person because they couldn't access, because you can't help joining them to feel angry at the authorities and the people who should have enabled their travel. But when you talk to them, the tone and the actual issues that come out and the revelations are also very telling. And also talking to people, for me, I realized that even if it was a learning experience, Uganda going forward needs to adapt a culture where you don't look at the individual in the office, but you look at the office itself, because there was no need for everybody to have to call the RCC. When the RCC has an office, the people should have been going to the RCC, and the RCC should have had the infrastructure where several people and people they could trust. So it means that institutions should employ people that have a good record. And when you can trust those people, then the RCC, whether it's night or not, there are people who are not calling, because in a way, because for instance, Grace Naroga says that when she delivered, but when she was going to deliver, she called the RDC's number and it was off. The deputy was off. The OC was off. The DPC was off. But these people are individuals. They cannot work over 24 hours. So I think going forward, the lesson for government, for policy, for people who, policymakers and legislators, is we need to stop giving responsibility to individuals. Rather, we should give responsibility to the office, because when the office is operational and functional, then there are people to delegate. That said, you can also understand when someone says they're overwhelmed dealing with over 40 or 50 people, because if she says the first floor was full, the second floor was full, the compound was full, and that is her and her office. So how many ambulances would help? Of course, not everybody was a patient, but everybody had emergencies. The person who wanted to travel to pick a sick person had an emergency, same as the person who wanted to go and bury a dead wife or mother, same as the person who wanted. So I think that it was important to contain COVID, but going forward, I think not only gender, but disaster preparedness. And disaster preparedness has been looked at from a level of floods, from a level of maybe bomb attacks or wars and whatever. But disaster preparedness, as we have seen, can also be a health issue. It can be a food security issue, which is also an element that came out that we do not talk about, but actually came out. And talking about food security, before I come to energy, I'll go to Madame Olivia Makumbi. So you have this garden, Olivia's garden, right?
Olivia Home Garden.
Olivia Home Garden. And there are gardens that are not at home. Oh yeah, some people have farms. So what I had, like I had your story from Awani. And what I heard is that the entire community was experiencing issues of food shortage. Tell us exactly what happened. I mean, there was food shortage, yes, but what, in your opinion, as a person who has practiced actually agriculture, who teaches agriculture in an area which is not in Kampala Central, because my grandmother used to be at Kalambi. Kalambi is about, before actually reaching Bulova. And there was a lot of food that was coming from Kalambi. What happened? Why don't people have food anymore? Why didn't people in Wabitende, which sounds so far by the way, I don't know if it's the name, why don't people in Wabitende actually have food? What happened? I mean, why would they cry at the same level as the people in Katwe, Kampala, and Nakasero?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam. Wabitende is not very far. We are 8 miles from Kampala, off Gulu Road. But the name looks a bit old. There used to be a lot of these pitembe. They look like bananas. Because there used to be a forest. Now that forest is no more. That forest was along Mayanja. You know, Mayanja starts around the river. So that is where we got that name. But the people in Wabitembe are not seated people. They are near the city, but we still have the village in us. Maybe. So we are not really city people. And we are used to farming on large acreages. So when most of those people settled there, because of the people, when they were building the northern bypass, there are a lot of settlements, and people came and settled in. They bought their small pieces, plots, and now they are there, and they are growing no food. Most of them actually moved to Kampala to work, no informal jobs, which does bring in a lot of money. But I think that is where the problem came from. People move to Kampala, they earn on a daily basis. The day doesn't work, then he won't earn, then he won't eat. So when the lockdown came, everybody was not moving, so he was not eating. There was a lot of harm.
So there is a hand-to-mouth culture. So the hand-to-mouth culture, is it more attractive? What explains why people who used to grow their own food, as you're saying, on big acreage, are no longer growing their own food, and they are instead opting for the unstable hand-to-mouth, where if you don't work that day, you don't eat?
I think people were used to farming from the villages that we came. They would have large expanses of land. In fact, in Uganda, I think we believe that if you have 1 acre of land, then you are not supposed to dig. So you need that expanse. So these people who had settled in Wabitembe on 150 plots, they took it for granted that then they were not supposed to farm. Where do they farm? And that is where we came in with the Olivia Home Gardens.
So tell us.
To show them that they can farm. There's a lot of land in 50 by 100
It's
minus
big land.
the small area for the house.
So someone, what I'm hearing from you is that you think someone on an area of 50 to 100 is able to grow food that can probably feed them?
Which can go a long way to keeping off the famine and the hunger.
In that
and
space.
Especially provide vegetables. You know, if you have not, if you don't have the starchy foods, but you have the vegetables, which are medicinal and keep away so many diseases and keep you healthy and the skin vibrant, I think you are better off.
True. There's something interesting that you talked about, the Kameza money, which actually fits into the issue of daily income, hand-to-mouth culture. Tell me more about Kameza money. What is Kameza money?
Kameza money is something new in Uganda, really. Because from time immemorial, it is the women here, especially in Central, who are supposed to look around to make sure that there is food. But somehow the tables have turned, and it must be the man to provide, to go out and work, and then leave money here for the family to feed. That's the Kameza money comes. If he goes out without leaving anything on this table, he may as well not come back.
And because everything has to be bought from the market, with the absence of the gardens that used to be there, everything from the very basic tomatoes to grains has to come from the market.
So what I'm hearing you saying,
monetary terms.
no, what you're saying about monetary terms, the buying and whatever, also reflects to the culture of rural-urban immigration, where people move to the urban areas because they probably think they offer better opportunities. But how is it better opportunity if when you don't work tomorrow, you don't have food? For me, I felt that time gave us lessons, because I don't know if you saw people, I was watching NTV and I saw people who walked from Kampala to Kabale. They were heading to Chisoro.
Yes.
And they had walked for 4 days. And why that had happened is because they did not have food, they had not worked for days. And that was before the prolonged lockdown. So for me, my question would be, and unfortunately, Penina has not joined us because Penina did a study which is meant to kind of also inform policy and also inform advocacy. And she should have probably explained to us where going forward, what needs to be done in as far as the issue of rural-urban immigration is concerned, because for me, I felt it was a wake-up call. I don't know if people are going to ride on that or pick lessons. If you have to walk to the village because you have not spent 4 years, what is it, in your view, Madam Olivia, and in your view, Betty, that attracts people who come from very beautiful areas? Because the people I saw on TV were coming from Chisoro. Now, Chisoro is the Switzerland of Uganda. It has beautiful environment, beautiful weather, rich soils. Probably the population could be high, especially in Kabale, that beautiful soils. So what makes people like that move, and what needs to be done to manage the movement so that people should, wherever they are, not feel a need to go and have a hand-to-mouth culture? And this doesn't speak or fit into what you did with Olivia's garden, but I just wanted to hear from you as the first play for us, your video, the Olivia garden, what you're talking about, and the relevance of gardens and how we can utilize and explore the small land. But I would like to still, as they prepare to play the video, to hear from you, both of you.
Yeah, what I feel that this rural-urban movement, there should be a plan. Here in Uganda, we do very little planning. We always wait for something to happen, then everybody jumps in and they want to solve the problem, which they can't, because there are so many other issues. So we should plan. People shouldn't just get up and go to the to the urban area.
Do you think if the... Oh, but I'll first like to let Betty share her views.
Well, yeah, I agree with what Olivia has said. Yeah, it should be planned, the rural-urban migration. But how does it come about? Because people move for opportunities. What opportunities are there to keep them in the village? If that is absent, then they will look for where they are. Everyone believes that the opportunities are in the urban area. And I can't say thanks to COVID, but it is now that people realize that the opportunities are actually in the village. If you have somewhere, you are like an acreage of land, and then you can plan and do something productive on it, do pig, but goat rearing or chicken farming, then that can sustain your family. Because during COVID, it didn't take long for the urban dwellers, to start starving. Government had to distribute food. But within just a few days, people were crying because of that bit of hand to mouth. So just imagine if somebody had something in their backyard. The COVID period tested us on how much reserve people had to sustain them to the end. And it was not just about the low-income earners, even people in corporate offices, because some come to work in the corporate offices. But then COVID happens, and then the office is not there. Somebody has been earning, I can't say even 1 million shillings, that sounds big. But if it is abruptly terminated, then there will be no different from even, can I say, the one who was living hand to mouth. So I think it has to be something to do with mindset change. And also giving people, exposing them to opportunities, because I also realize that people lack knowledge, lack information. They say Uganda is an entrepreneurial country, but I think it's mainly because of the copy and paste. People don't have ideas. Everyone is doing chapati. I don't know how many are out there on the street, so when they are taking the statistics, I don't know if that is what represents entrepreneurial. But there is that showing that people are really ready to work, but they lack the knowledge or the training, or even knowing which other options are there. And I feel that is where the government and other stakeholders have to come in. They have to skill, train people, and I think mainly on the government part, it's also about the infrastructure, because going back to those days of our fathers, they will tell you how the cooperatives used to work. Yeah, those people who came to town, I hear, sold their land to come and, because they were farming, by the way, but they would farm and then not be able to access the markets. How is the infrastructure of the market? How does one access the market? You grow your whatever produce, and then you can't get it to the market. Even if you do, there is also politics around the market. So if that can be straightened out, that the farmer back there in the village is assured of having their produce going to the market and getting something that is commensurate to their effort, then that would keep them there. But they were disappointed in the first place. That's how we had that kind of shift. People got disappointed. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't want to lose that, but interesting that you actually point out the issue of market, because we've been getting stories, market access. We've been getting stories of farmers who would grow their gardens, do everything, and when the food is ready, they produce, and they would like to make money. The middleman comes and would actually sell, buy them at takeaway price, an air of I'm doing you favor because, and this person has no access to the market at all. Which, like you have pointed out, challenges or is a huge responsibility on government to actually reinstate the infrastructures that we had, or the infrastructure that we had based on today's reality, because now there are also new things that have come up that they need to, and when you talk about the reality, it's also such a pity that Penny Nangatagisa is not here, because she was going to talk about digitalizing agriculture. So for you, you had been teaching, as I heard from you, and had not actually ventured into farming.
I was doing something because that was because I was putting most of my time in Ndejje University teaching. You know, go very early in the morning, come back in the evening. So there was very little time to teach the community. But now that I'm retired, I want now to pick up with the community, and I continue my teaching now with the community.
Making education relevant to the communities. It's a commendable job because you did it without anybody paying you, but you decided you wanted to. So how did you come up with the idea of let me now start training, especially the women, but also the men in my community to start urban gardening? Exactly what now tipped that off?
My observation, because I would go, as I said, I would go very early in the morning to Ndejje, I would come back in the evening. But all the same, I would have some little time to grow some dodo, some nakatika. And then in the evening, the ladies from the community would come and say, can you have some dodo? Then I said, you better start learning to use the vertical, because for them they are saying, you see, when we came here, we don't have land. I told them, no, now we can use the vertical space rather than the horizontal space. Plant in the sacks, plant along the walls, and then we have our vegetables.
But now our understanding is soil, whatever, so when you talk about vertical, not horizontal, how does one call, what do they have to do?
The air than the ground, the soil on the ground.
Along the wall fence.
Because if you have a sack, which is about 2 feet diameter, I grew up in feet, that is how many centimeters. And it is about half a meter tall. The number of sukuma wheats that you plant along the side and on top, that would be so much. But if you were to remove that sack, how many plants of sukuma will you have? About 4 in that ground area. That's what I'm saying. That when you have this sack, then you have all the air above you for this vegetable to grow, rather than the ground.
Like a storage garden.
It is a storage garden.
So, have we run out of land to
In the urban.
in the urban?
You see, in the Wabi Temple, but me, I came there in the 90s. But so many people came, as I said, when they were making the Northern Bypass. And they have very little land. So they run out of space. They don't have space.
But so do many people in Kampala and other urban areas, right?
Even in other upcoming cities. That is
No.
going to be the story.
Okay, so now, it also takes me back to the issue that you said, because now you said, actually I think it came from the interview, one of the gentlemen who has benefited from your program, because Dr. Olivia started training people in her community to do the gardening, the urban gardening, use the sacks, use the veranda, go vertical, but someone was saying that domestic violence was high. But my experience is that the women have, from as a journalist, but also as a women activist, I've been seeing that women are the ones who are running homes. They are working and sustaining the homes. So when you say that domestic violence rose, because the men were not living Kameza money, Is it that the men are the ones feeding and the women doing absolutely nothing, not digging, not gardening, not contributing to the income? What is it exactly? Why the domestic violence when there is no kameza money? You could also compliment.
Well, I think I can compliment based on, I think, what I watch, the local channel of is Katali Gomfofo. You will always get that couple, you know, domestic violence because of money issues, because there are many needs at home, you know, and if a woman is not contributing and has to depend on the man, you're bound to get on his nerve. Just imagine you have a baby and then you have your own personal needs. So you're starting from the milk for the baby, then the pamper, then the food for the home, and then your own needs. I'm sure by the time you're going for the third or fourth need, you've really pissed him off. And it's like, that's the welcome you will always have. You know? And there is no polite way of putting it. So the moment the woman is not empowered to have her own, then that is bound to happen, and you're like 100% dependent on your spouse. That violence is bound to happen. Every small discussion will result into some form of violence. So it's important that women are empowered in a certain way to make sure they are also contributing at least maybe 50%, or at least meeting at least the basic things like fuel, like the greens, like there are things you can do at home without necessarily going to the market. So that the only time you have to ask for money is for those things that you would not get anywhere else apart from the shop, like the washing soap and yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering, are we going wrong with how we bring up our girls? Are we bringing up our girls to, are we telling them that when they grow up, they'll get married? When they will get married, the man is there to bring everything. Because our mothers used to be told to contribute. She comes to the home to contribute to work. But these days, I think there's a problem with our education system. The girls know that they are going to care for their nails, and there's no way you can tell what to touch soil, because the man is there.
I also would like to pick on that, because honestly, when you go to the market, half the people who are working are women. When you go to the streets, more than half the people who are selling very late at night are women. You even see children who are trying to work so that they can contribute. When you go to some of these fights also, it's because a woman did the labor, but when the payment came, the man took it. So I want to understand, which type of woman is this woman who is expecting to be given, and who are these other women who are not given? When does that happen? What needs to be done? Because I heard about the education and I heard you. But how about the rest of, if you go for visitation days, the people who go to visit the children and take things and are walking and are carrying luggage are women. Where has it got wrong? Are there some women who don't, and some women who do, and some who are lucky that their husbands have to bring, and when they don't bring, there will be a fight? Which parts? Where are those people? I'm just a little bit confused, because I also have had a lot of, for me, COVID made me think, wait a minute. I know women in Kampala, I wake up, I see them going very early in the morning, they're working. Is the domestic violence because now they are not working and their husbands are not working? Is it because, who are these women? Like, what is the state of affairs? That's why for me, I would really have loved to to hear from Penina, but I also love what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think there is an age group and education level that is expecting to be given.
Mm.
But then there's that big group of the women who are paying the fees. So I think we need some research on that.
I think it is for researchers out there, for government. First of all, there's been a challenge, but almost every topic we have, there is a question on the quality of education and culture and everything. Who, even for employers, the kind of employees that they get who come, and the expectations of the employees vis-a-vis the input. It's the same thing with the wives, the expectations of the husbands of the wives, and the expectations of the wives of the husbands. And I would not like it to take us away from this conversation, but it's also a very honest and today conversation in terms of relations, gender roles, and expectations and nurturing of our people, and the breakdown of the traditional institutions like Senga and Jaja. What happened? What fills that gap now? What is there to fill that gap? And of course someone will say Senga was trying to make me submissive and be a slave and all that. You can also guide us on what Senga was doing. But for me, in the absence of that, what fills that gap? Where do we look now, going forward? Yes, the research should be done. Betty, you had something to add on what I asked or to share?
I think it has to go back to the traditional setting, the way it worked. A lot has changed. I mean, it's a generation after a generation. The one that follows doesn't understand the one before. With globalization, technology, we are trying to copy a lot from different countries, from different continents. And even now, I mean, then we had our own tribes, people marrying into the same tribe, and now with urbanization and modernization, you find their intermarriages. So we are having now a mix of cultures, copying a bit of this and a bit of that. Well, me being a Muganda, like I respect the Chiganda culture, but you can see how much effort is being put into even preserving the culture, because you can't see now even where people go for the traditional Kwanjura that they had now modernized or done something completely different from what it was supposed to be until the kingdom personalities had to come in and, you know, put it straight. So you would hope that that would happen for the other tribes as well, to keep preserving the culture of the different tribes. And it becomes a challenge now when you have again intermarriages. Yes, I mean, as Baganda, we are told to be, we'll call it submissive, and then you have your Muchiga husband who is like Kansime. You understand? So, I mean, how do you bring up your daughter then? Because sharing from my personal experience, there is a way being that submissive kind of bringing up has affected my personality. I admire Kansime when I see her. There are times I would have wanted to speak up, but then I'm like, oh, she's older than me, she's mature, she's, you know, and I can't. Which means that you find yourself most of the time being put down because of what you are. So it has to be a lot of work from the traditional side, but also education system. There is a lot that can be done in education. I liked, that's personally, the curriculum that is coming up. I haven't studied it a lot or understood it a lot, but I understand it has to do a lot with practical skills. I mean, we grew up at the time where you just cram. I mean, I see my girl now going through preparing for exams and end up cramming and all that. Is it photosynthesis who are learning at it? Like, whenever you're going to apply this, okay? But being the kind of person I am now, that I have a small enterprise at home, I find the lessons that I give them, not more like a blackboard lesson, but a lesson every day of telling him, you know what, you weigh those that fuel, and I need those bags. I need 15 kilograms of each. That is more building, because it's helping him to appreciate the numbers. He understands what a kilogram is. He knows what he weighs. When he goes to the weighing machine, it's not, you know, he appreciates coming from the practical aspect of it. And he knows when it is less, what it means. He's cheating the customer. When it is more, he's cheating himself. So at a micro level, and this is what I would have loved for every school, for students to learn, so that they are able to implement it and even make more informed decisions in the kind of things they want to be. I mean, if I was exposed to agriculture then, I remember when we were learning agriculture, all we did was to cram the grasses. I remember they had those botanical names, yeah. But it never really made sense, yeah. But seeing this guy now is called Professor Bayo, you know, extracting herbal oils, and he's a wealthy young man, you know, it's making sense now. And I'm like, if I had that kind of exposure then, maybe I would have decided differently on the kind of academic line to pursue.
Interesting that you say that, because again it takes us back to the conversation of the type of education that we give, because some people have argued, why is it that the people who are at Katwe, a lot of them not having gotten like the kind of quality high education, but are the ones who are creative. And some have argued that it's because traditionally the system was apprenticeship of some sort, because you learn on the job. It may have had the challenges, but you learn on the job. Same as what you have said about the culture. Because also culture has been known to actually subdue women and to be used to actually to put down women. Culture has been used to genetically mutilate women and a number of other things. There are also boys who have not gone to school because culturally they are supposed to hard, same as girls. We'll be watching a film I think on Sunday about Karamoja, and how a woman in Karamoja is the human horse. I mean donkey, because once someone pays, they have paid for you and you're supposed to. So I think maybe the cultural aspects of development being incorporated in development, like the cultural aspects, and picking what is based, what is not based, but also lessons. For instance, COVID, our experience. What do we learn from COVID that we shouldn't lose? Because in COVID we saw, as you pointed out, that actually the rural area is not a problem. It depends on how you tap on it. So yes, the lessons you talked about, infrastructure and everything, but as individuals, because government is not going to be everywhere. For the individual women, for the people, for the mothers, for the parents who are out there, what are the lessons that they are picking? For Olivia, she suggests that we inevitably have to adapt urban gardening. What are the other lessons? So tell me, the women in your community, so you teach them, do they adapt it? Do they go ahead to start doing the urban gardening?
Yeah, those who have picked up, they are now really planting, especially now it is raining.
What are they planting? How is it reflected? What is the effect of adapting that? Has it had any effect that is visible for other people probably to pick?
Yes, because now the others are saying, oh, people now, at least you have access to vegetables. So even the others are now saying, Madam, you also show us.
About how many women have you taught?
So far, those who have planted, they are 10.
Oh, that's impressive.
10.
I also know you taught some men.
Yeah, like Mr. Powers.
Yes. So about how many
I
men?
have a pastor, a young pastor. There is also that Hajj. So we are a Protestant. So in our village anyway,
Yes.
we don't say, that is Muslim. We are all together in the community and we want to solve our problem. Especially with hunger. People suffer the little hunger. And you know, now they are realizing that in COVID, when they didn't have access to a variety of vegetables, they spent so much money going to the clinic to have some nurses there. But now that people are starting to plant and to really care for the Nakati, the path, the road to the nurse has dried up a bit.
Oh, really? It's reduced. So there is a connection between health and diet and feeding and.
Yes. Most of our vegetables are medicine.
We saw some of the medicines you showed us there, and
So if you make it a point to regularly eat these, especially the local vegetables, you live with the cabbages, the muzungu's cabbage.
What's wrong with the muzungu's cabbage?
It is 80%.
Isn't water life?
When you don't live in the world.
Oh my God, Doctor.
When you compare,
I don't want people to miss the fact that you said water is life when someone doesn't live in Waise, because Waise a flood, so it causes death. Like, please kindly follow.
But if you go into for Nakati is very medicine. It even keeps away cancer. It is given to pregnant women. When you are nearing term, you make it a point to take in Nakati. You shouldn't take it in as news and you drink a mug of Nakati.
Put it in your lifestyle, eating lifestyle.
It eases the pain and you don't delay
In labor?
in labor.
Wow, you just had that?
And all those things we don't.
We should have another
birth attendant. And women would go there. Now she died some 2 years ago.
How sad.
But she would, feel where the fetus is, and then she would decide a bit of the root of this
Nakati. Oh, Jobio. What is the biological name of Jobio?
The child would just come some.
With the root of the Jobio.
We choose it.
And yet you feel that modern
So
hospitals.
our vegetables are medicine.
Wow. Thank you very much. That's very
They
inspiring.
want to lose that knowledge.
Yeah, I think we should have another talk show where we're talking about the medicines at the Native TV YouTube channel, but also on our Facebook channel. Thank you very much, Mama FM 101.7. For the people, please tune in to 101.7. We are live. Many thanks to Uganda Media Women Association for enabling this. Many thanks to the people in the studio at Mama FM right now, and to the listeners. Please send your messages. We'll get back. We'll keep this conversation running, but I also don't want you to lose the kind of information and tips you get from Betty here when it comes to actually turning waste into energy and money. Tell us about Best of Waste.
Thank you very much again, and thanks viewers for keeping live. Well, Best of Waste, I think, also started, I can't say by accident, but just like her, it's until you leave employment that you realize the opportunities around you. As a woman and well, somebody who is committed to your employment, you find it hard to multitask, have a side business and then still be loyal to your employer. So it was a decision as a woman I had to take at some point in my life to reset or redefine my priorities. Amen. By the time you're above 30, you have children, you have a husband, and you're still looking to the future, it was a question mark, yeah. It raised a lot of questions for me. Yeah, I was there, but I was not getting the kind of satisfaction that I had dreamt about as a young girl. So realigning what my priorities were was, first of all, I think family, to be at home, to raise proper children, be there when they cry. I mean, you've seen what happens again in the media, leaving your child to somebody else. You don't even know their favorite song or their favorite, rhymes. Yeah, so that was very key for me. Thank God I worked for a professional firm, which was an employer of choice. So
you might need to know that professionally, Betty is an accountant.
So it was a firm that really empowered us to be independent and work in our own to completion of assignments. So going with that skill, I was able to go out in the field and start banking on the knowledge that I'd acquired from there. So my background in accountancy and then as a tax consultant, that's what I went with. So it was not hard because I was using the same experience to look for clients. So I started as a freelance tax consultant, but more for me was to be able to do something else, because I knew by the time I'm 50, 60, I don't think I would be wanting to look at books. Not that I didn't love my work, but I felt I needed something else that was more, I think, relaxing outside numbers and taxes and, having those kind of debates and arguments with the tax authorities. So that's how I started, at home, in my compound. But being at home, it's like, that's when you realize, by the way, I have such a big compound, in my view. It's like, what do I need all this space for? And I was looking at how to minimize costs at home. So having to slash every day from my pocket, I was like, not every day, but when I had to, I was like, I don't think I should be getting money from my pocket to slash this compound. This compound should slash itself by doing something around here that would be able to generate the money to sustain it. So, because I had more time, I kept on looking for opportunities, trying out different things. I think I also did a bit of urban farming. Yeah, but one thing came out. Because of a need, I had a challenge for fuel. I started making my own fuel. I didn't know, it was vague, but thanks to technology and the internet, I was able to research and get something vague out of it, which I kept on building on and improving with time. So with time, I had some good fuel that I could work with. The other thing that was powerful for me, because I had to go out to see clients and everything, there were these young boys and women who were kind of my neighbors and had a bit of time. So whenever I had an idea, I would engage them. Small time, like, okay, do this for me, and then in the evening we would review, and then we would see what they've done. So we kept on growing like that. So by the time we had some good fuel, we could use it. We could use it to cook, and then I also encourage them, you can also have for yourself.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the great initiative. I think you're inspiring in a lot of people, because when you say to stay home, I'm not saying that only women should stay home. We can also have house fathers, but I think it is a decision and discussion people, before they go into having children, should have about how to raise their children, to have the kind of things that you're talking about, where you know their stories, talk to them and everything. At the same time, home, like who does home, who spends more time with them, who contributes to what. I think modern families today, women and men, have a challenge discussing, because we have moved away from areas where it was the next house and the next was your grandmother, your mother and family. A lot of us have moved to towns, and sometimes people have found that actually the people who are the parents are the teachers. But the teachers are also there to teach your children what is like direct education. So a lot of the people who are coming out are missing out on some of the skills that Olivia already talked about. And Betty has just talked about, and that is not the responsibility of only a woman, because that's the tendency and the conversation that comes up. It's a responsibility of parents to plan, woman and man, their children. And of course, I've not come to give a lecture about that, but I just felt that it's very empowering for some of the people who've not had children yet to think about when they're having children, are they able to have the kind of things? And then she's talking about, I was thinking about when I turned 50, and it is also common that people think about 50 when they are 49 or already 50. So planning ahead for women, for families, for children is very, very important. But also, what I'm hearing from her is that security, because she said there were all these people who did not have a lot of work to do. And for me, it is Betty's polite way of saying they were not productively engaged. And when we say there is insecurity and we don't look in our communities to see that our people in the communities are suffering, and we also need to play a role such as the role Betty plays, because what I'm hearing from her is that she actually devised ways of engaging them. Then we are not contributing to security, but we are making our own place insecure, even if we build the high fenced walls, because we will have to pass. In these very communities, there are neighbors, and there is one day when the walls will no longer protect us. And this is not a threat, but I'm just saying, if you can do what Betty has been able to do, if what Olivia has been able to do, then you're contributing to prevention of insecurity in your area, but also just to have a general feeling that other people around you are living well. What is it that made you decide this is the business you're going into?
Okay, like I said, usually a challenge is out of something you're experiencing. So fuel is what everybody needs. I mean, during COVID, after they had given the beans and the food, women were still asking government that, you've given us all this, but how are we going to cook these beans? You know, we need more money than what you've given us to be able to cook these beans. Meaning that fuel is as essential as the food itself and all the other basic needs, because the way human beings are conditioned, we eat cooked food from the time we are young. So it's something that is part and parcel of the food. Cooking is a necessity, it's an essential product. So fast forward, we now make with my community enough fuel for me, for them, and I'm encouraging them, yeah, you can sell, you can, you know.
So you were making?
I was making with the community.
So the community members come and make from your place?
Yeah, there were times I had put up a small dryer, which we had built, so to encourage them to come every day, they make the numbers, I'm able to pay for their labor for me, and then they're able to take some as well. Yeah, so we moved on like that. And then I reached that point where I was telling them that, you know what, you've made so much, now you can keep some for yourself, and then you can sell to maybe your neighbors and everything. But it's so interesting that they prefer to come to my place every day.
Maybe
they're
networking,
like,
interacting?
Not really networking. They're like, who are we going to sell to? People don't know this thing. So they prefer that I look for the market, while for them they make.
Oh, wow. Did you find the market?
So that's how Best of West came up. I had to now start a business, which I had no idea about. I'd never run a business. And then start getting now some skills on registration, what it requires, and even now, what are the government laws if I have a business, what are the UNPS and all those if I'm selling a product. So I had to go into all that. Luckily, I registered with some incubation center in my period again through a lot of networking. But it all turned out so good because I got the information, the skill, and I was able to get a micro grant to set up and now become a full-term.
Wow, micro grant. Congratulations.
Yes.
From?
Thank you. That is from Renewable. It's called REBI, Renewable Energy Business Incubator.
Wow.
After I'd gone through the acceleration program.
Wow.
So now I have a business and I have to make it run, make it work. I have workers and everything is new to me. Having to deal with employees, all those things I've been an employee for a good part of my life, and now here I am, I have to manage employees. Yes, but it all turned so good. It was a learning experience, but at the end of the day, we had something to deliver. We had a fuel, and again it became interesting, and I was looking at the impact and the kind of awareness it was creating. I had people visiting, people wanting.
How did they know about what we do? How did they know about that?
I'm saying now information was going out.
How? What channels did you tap for women who have different businesses and people don't know what they are doing, and probably it could be very, very relevant and a required resource, but they don't know how to put it out there. How did you put it out?
Actually, I didn't put out information, but through the networks and the partnerships I formed, because now I had the community, then there are the local authorities, and we have a landfill where they do the waste collection. With time, I was able to partner also with the waste pickers at the Chitezi landfill, so that is such a big community as well, and the stakeholders are many. And also when people are looking for information, I think when you Google search, you're likely to find best of waste or something. And even people who I think use the route where our shop is.
Or you have a shop, because
Yes.
it's at home is where you created the shop, or the shop is in a different space?
Initially, I think we were selling from home, but now there was a lot of traffic, so I had to find a shop by the roadside.
So the business grew big.
Well, you can say big, but it was
That's
because
nice.
of the earlier push by the community. You remember they didn't want to sell, so they wanted to sell to me. I had to find a way of now making that happen by having a shop where when they make their briquettes, they bring them over to the shop, and so that I have less traffic at my home.
And who became your clients basically?
Yeah, we are now selling word of mouth. Interestingly, when we had something good, I was thinking of some clients so far away in town, and because this looked like a new technology, maybe for whites in supermarkets and things like Game and Nakumat. Yeah, but
Can you explain the technology to our listeners? What's the technology?
the technology used in what we do with briquettes, it's we use organic waste. Organic waste is waste like plant waste that decomposes. So that is good because it decomposes, it is not hazardous. The same way you cut a tree, actually it's not different from the way they make charcoal. Only now that any plant material can be dried and then prepared, we call it carbonization, in such a way that we get the charcoal equivalent of it, call it Zizinga. Like when you burn a piece of paper, that black thing that remains, okay? So that is char, it's called char. So that is what we crush, and then we bind with some other additives, which are also environmentally friendly. And then we use some tools, machines, to compress and have the briquette.
I hear you say environmentally friendly. Was it deliberate and conscious for you to protect the environment, or it was a coincidence that the things you do?
Yeah, initially it was a coincidence. It was a coincidence because I was just looking at my own need. But now when I saw the kind of impact I could have on the environment, especially that very close, in close proximity there is a landfill, which I just see as a hill, but it is all waste. I'm like, wow, there's so much resource here. What if we are able to turn all this around? How much effect would we do to the environment? Because just imagine all the waste that is dumped there, and it is not processed in any way. In the process of decomposition, there's liquids oozing out, and then the hot gases going to the atmosphere. If we are able to, maybe at individual level, to manage that little organic waste, the organic waste in form of food peelings, maize cobs, whatever we eat at home, there's a lot we can do with it to preserve it in such a way, create a place where you can dry it, and then have fuel at the end of the day.
Can small waste that we get from home be enough to actually get some fuel?
because that's all actually you need to do your daily cooking. You need about 2 kilograms a day. Just think about it. How much would you buy every day?
2 kilograms?
Yeah, 2 kilograms is what we usually estimate for a small family of 5. It's mother, father, and then the maid, and probably 2 or 3 kids.
How much waste makes 2 kilograms? Especially domestic waste.
Yeah, if I'm to put it in kilograms, then it will be like 3 times. Meaning like 6 or 7 kilograms of waste would give you 2 kilograms. But it is something that you do without paying so much attention, because like if you create that system at home, every day you know that when we peel, this is where we put our waste. When it is this is where it goes, and then this, and then at the end of the day, it's kind of a circular thing, whereby at the end of the day, you know, you had food, and then it is coming back as fuel.
So the people in your community must not have suffered when the rest of us were suffering from COVID effects. No charcoal, no.
I would want to believe, at least the people who know me, people that have worked with me, they did have a fuel challenge, because especially for those homes that can do their own waste recycling. But what was interesting is that because of this, like she said, people are always moving to town to go to work and everything. It's like they don't know what is around them. It's only during COVID that they realized that, oh, you mean there's some other fuel? Oh, where have you been? You remember now with the restriction, people were spending time walking on the village and trying to find what is where. So I had people coming and asking, you know, where have you been? I'm like, I've been here the entire time. How come we've never seen you and all that? But all because they were the, is it 8 to 8 or 6 to 6? Kind
so
of.
did they buy, did they learn, what happened?
Yeah, like there was a lot of learning. People were learning, it was a new revelation. So we had another, you know, a new clientele. New clientele, people generally learning about briquettes and actually finding it more economical, because we had reached that point whereby you buy a bag of charcoal for so much, maybe 100,000 shillings, but then the value you're getting is for less than 30. Even when you weigh it, it's not weighing 50 or 30 kilograms, and half of it is in ash, call it charcoal ash. It's called Lucenium. Yes. But people continue to buy because they are just looking at the voluptuous kind of thing. Yet with briquettes, what you get, what you see is what you get. You're getting value for money. If it's, we standardize, because we are using machines, we standardize the size. So you know 1 kilo has probably 6 pieces. And it will always be 1 kilo, the 6 pieces will always. So you never have that compromise where 1 kilo is less by a certain piece. So that gives a bit of trust also. Then there's the durability. When you're burning with it, it will take you longer. Where you have to refill your stove maybe 3 times or 4, here you'll bring it once. You will have it and then it's burning for 3 to 4 hours.
Wow.
Yes.
So you didn't have challenges, I think, because of how, once people knew about it, because of how affordable it sounds to be, and especially also affordable in the sense of how much it's able to do for many hours. And I want to hope it's affordable in price. Maybe you will tell us about that. Yes, you got more clients, so your business was not affected by COVID?
Yeah, you can't say that, by being again an essential product, because remember now, movement was restricted, so people were calling for even the basic things. Food, you either had to have a boda, then a number for the market vendor. So charcoal also became known like that, because now people could order. I mean, we also found new ways of marketing. We went online to use the Jumia and the Safe Border. So people were ordering. So
tell me about online, because it speaks to what Penny was supposed to speak about today, digitalization of agriculture. Okay, it in a way falls there. So how were you able to tap and find clients online? How would you know that these are people in my neighborhood or people who might need my resources? Because it's not been in our culture.
It's not been in our culture, very true. But the way COVID came, it's like it brought another, they call it the new normal. Even people who are not embracing technology, remember now people were at home and they were spending more time on Facebook and social media, call it. So that was an opportunity for us to even have our Facebook. Luckily it had been there, but now we kind of revamped it. Yeah, so somebody looking at it first time and like, wow, this is fuel, let me order anyway. Yeah. So it got more attraction, and customers and clients were able to order online.
Wow, so you're one of those stories we need to look at in terms of people, because these are COVID tales and it's been very hard for people. But there's also people who were enterprising, who's actually seized the moment and the time and marketed, as you're saying, and looked for the markets. But there was also an issue of movement affecting supply of raw material. How did you handle that?
Because of, again, like COVID, restriction, closure of schools, we usually have a certain, called yield buffer for our schools that ordinarily buy from us. And now...
So you mean you're also selling to schools?
Yes, schools are our bulk buyers. Schools, restaurants, poultry farmers, and then households. Yeah, schools were contributing almost 40%, and then the rest maybe 20, like that.
So if you lost out on schools, which is 40%,
yes,
then your business was affected.
It was affected. It was immensely because of that bulk buyer. Because just imagine a school of 1,000 children, how much do they consume every day? So that was some bit of, assurance of revenue, and now
gone.
It was gone.
So how did you manage with them gone?
Well, how it was,
bulk?
yes. I mean, we had to deal with it, but then again, we had to find new ways. And it was, I can't say the new clientele from the household could make up from the school, but you could see that we had now more household sales than the ones we had before, because people were just learning about the briquettes as opposed to using charcoal. So we had a shoot up in the, and we dealt with it because all we had to do was now to cut back on the production and just do what was enough to service the current clientele. For that time of, I think, the initial months of COVID, it was only household that we could service because everything else was closed. Restaurants,
did cutting off on production affect employment and stuff?
Yes, it did. It did. And for any business, what was key at that point in time was to cut back on costs. And how would you do that? Well, because of the way we employ our workers, we don't have lots of permanent staff because it's more like community engagement. You have more of casuals coming to put in their time a week and all that. Yeah, so we had to ration. But of course, surprisingly, they'll be lining up every other day because of this hand-to-mouth.
So how did you ration?
Ration as in they would still have to work
some
in shifts.
people?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they had to work in shifts. We didn't have this usual
but you maintained your staff?
Yeah, we had to maintain them just to give a balance so that everybody can see the post-COVID.
Oh, that's generous. So you instead, what I'm hearing is you instead decided to make sure that the staffs work less.
Yes.
In terms of the number of days the staff can come.
Exactly.
But each of them can then come.
We needed to have social distancing, so that was something we had to observe.
But so, nobody was put off like...
nobody was put off, only that now they were getting less, because you find somebody working the entire week, every day showing up. But then they had to understand that, a few can come today and then a few come tomorrow, so that we rotate and everybody has something for their home.
Incredible. So you talked about teaching people, and I'm sure there are people who might be listening to us and they want to learn to make bouquets, use waste productively. How can people come for lessons? How do people who live far come for lessons? Do you do online classes, email? Can they come for camps? Do you have this? What happens? Is that possible too?
Yes, it's possible, and it was also something that came out of COVID. Yes, because that was a time where I can't say we didn't want to sell, but it was about survival. Yeah, people were stuck in their homes, stuck first of all with no food, and probably stuck with waste, because even the garbage companies were not working. But again, because of technology, like I said, people were again learning new things. Some were gardening, some groups you'd see people posting, and they were excited about the newfound skills. Yes. So it was interesting. Now that time I was like, okay, hey, maybe I can share something about briquettes and see how they perceive it. And it was overwhelming.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everyone wanted to say, well, I have waste here, or I have this. Some even had that Lucenyente have been talking about, whereby you have your bag, half of it is charcoal, and then half the entire time you've been throwing it away. So some got excited.
So Lucenyente is also productive?
Yes, it's productive. It's very productive.
How?
In making the briquette. Yes, it is waste.
Okay.
Because what happens to it after you got your charcoal?
Yeah.
What do you do with yours?
Yeah. I just throw.
Exactly.
So I think I need to come for lessons.
Yes, you need to
So
come
where
for
do I come
lessons.
to?
Yeah, so we shared videos so that people at least could be able to make their little fuel at home and just survive to do.
So you have videos online that direct people how to make their own briquettes?
Well, that time they were not professionally done.
Yeah.
But now we are making.
But you have them?
Yes, I have them.
So where does someone go to if they want to watch those videos?
Well, I have some on our Facebook page.
What's your Facebook page?
I will share, but it's the BO is Best of Waste Limited. So it's BO Ltd. That's the Facebook page.
For people following us up to be able
and
to
then our website
visit it.
bestofwest.org.
So visit bestofwest.org for more information on how to make your own briquettes. Thank you for employing the community. Thank you for saving the environment, because if people have to manage waste, then they are saving the environment. And I can see Madame Olivia taking a lot of notes. What's up?
Yes,
What's happening?
What I was speaking from her is that charcoal waste, that if you have too much of it, it is also very good fertilizer.
Yeah.
For the urban farm.
Because of that now, I can't say post-COVID because we haven't overcome it, but when the movement was now eased and people could go about their businesses, there was scarcity of now that raw material, the waste, that was saying it. Why? Because people during the COVID times, many, I think, households took on that recycling and making their own fuel at home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's commendable work.
Well, I
Emma,
don't
you
think
should
it
watch
was
and
because of
award.
me.
I think you're a contributing factor.
Yes, I don't think it was mainly because of me, but I'm just happy that people finally woke up to manage that bit of waste. Yeah, so what we are doing now is to make small equipments so that they can be able to also burn the pills. We talked about the organic waste, so that they can also create that Lucenyente equivalent out of it. So that was now the other opportunity.
So you also make equipment?
Yes, we do.
So tell us the type of equipments you make.
Yeah, it's the equipment that we use in the production of briquettes.
You make it for yourself?
Yeah, processes that we go through. So we work with the fabricators to make a unit that can be able to turn your waste into something that you can use to make
wow.
that. Yeah.
So what are some of like the ones you make? What are the prices? Can a small person like me afford it?
Yes, you can afford it, because remember we even start with our own hands, so the only thing you need in the beginning is just the knowledge and your energy.
Wow.
But even past that, then you can have the small manual tools. And then when you're able to add some more money, you can get the electric machines.
Oh, that's great. Great work. I would like to follow on what you were talking about, Lusenyente, and how it fertilizes. I could see you are already giving us information. I am sure people watching us right now and the people listening to us on 101.7 Mama FM are curious to know, how do they get hold of you? How do you teach, for instance, people who don't come from Wabitembe, or only people from Wabitembe are entitled to that privilege of getting that knowledge?
I'm teaching people even as far as in Sanji.
Oh, really?
There, yes.
You started a group?
And
In Sanji, you started a group? How does that work?
no, we are still individuals
Yes.
trying to come together. There are some from me, I come from they call it Kayonga district.
Wow.
So I also have some individuals there. So we are in. We really want to come together and form something.
Wow.
So they can, but just now I'm teaching in my home, state, Olivia home garden.
At Wabitembe.
In Ndejje Wabitembe.
Are you able to share some information how they can find Olivia and how they
home
can...
gardens, Ndejje Wabitembe, Nansana municipality,
Olivia Home Garden, Wabitembe. Hey, so Nakisanja Wabitembe in Nansana municipality. But these days, especially the COVID era, has demonstrated that we do things online. Are you on Facebook? Can people connect with you on Facebook? Is it okay for people to connect with you on your phone contact? How do people contact you?
Yeah, Facebook. We are now in advanced stages of starting
the page for Olivia Home Garden. Yes.
But my number, the phone number.
If you're okay sharing it, please go ahead.
It's all right.
Okay. Please call when you're requesting or in line with agriculture, advice, home gardening, and a number of other things.
The phone number has the WhatsApp. 0772
0772 for Olivia's Home Garden. 697875. You can also send mobile money, no problem. Don't say you sent it by mistake for it to be returned. Once the money goes there, kaput. Yeah, those are my words. And in the interest of time, I'd like to invite.
I should add that
okay.
We are also now focusing on the school children, those are the youth that should be coming up.
Wow.
Incidentally, it is good now. Urban farming is in the new curriculum.
Wow.
So for secondary school.
Hey, so I need to educate myself on the new curriculum. Sounds like it's really trying to respond to the gaps.
If it is really implemented well, it is a very good curriculum.
Incredible. Oh, that's good to hear.
So we are focusing on those that will be coming for practical lessons.
Hey, so
the schools
who
around.
can? Oh, so it's the schools.
Even for
Only schools around.
we are starting with those.
Okay, so
Charity starts at
charity starts at home, but that should not frustrate, I suppose, people, schools who want to take students to look at some of these things and learn gardening. So please visit Olivia's Home Garden. Are you also open to schools?
Yes,
And
we are
who
open.
can
We are
come?
open we have a place now where we make briquettes that is not home. But
Okay.
it is close to home.
Okay.
Yes, so they come to Best of West Limited.
Along where?
Yeah, and we are located in Chitezi. That is Wakiso.
Chitezi, yeah. Chitezi is Wachiso district.
Yeah.
Okay, so Best of West is located in Chitezi, Kasangati municipality of Gayaza Road in Wachiso district. Wachiso is positioning itself with serious entrepreneurs, because Nansana municipality is also in Wachiso district. So please believe you me, I had no idea that we all come from Watiso district. Just mesmerized and impressed by how they touched communities. See native voices empowering communities to take charge of their destiny, and they did not only empower communities, women too, and we are celebrating women, and especially that it is women who did this awesome work. We thought to celebrate with them. We also thought to share their experiences so that we could pick a lesson, pick a leaf, but also see how to also get those experiences and lessons and good examples and actually replicate in our respective communities. You don't have to be doing what they do, but whatever you do in your own way, please do it. And as we celebrate womanhood, please don't forget that you are safer, you are secure if those around you are safe and secure. And don't forget that once you actually elevate and support a woman, you are supporting a community. Can you imagine what they did? I think there is something to do with the fact that they are women, to think, let me go to the women, let me teach them. Not just them, not just their family. I think it is the motheriness. And believe you me, it has nothing to do with me promoting women because I'm a woman. This, I think, is a fact, a proven fact. But I would like to hear your parting remarks and anything you would like to share, and also in terms of womanhood, celebrations, belated celebrations, and to your listeners out there. I think we'll start with you.
I would like to talk to my fellow women. We are in this struggle together. Let's not depend so much on the men. They also have their own problems. Let's work together with them in the community. We grow vegetables, for example. We keep rabbits. We go in for any activity that can uplift the household so that we eventually we have a better life.
Thank you very much. And back to you.
To encourage women is to take up responsibilities in their communities. Like they say, to educate a woman, you've educated a nation. But like where a woman does some project, she can impact a whole community. And for me, when it comes to managing waste, this environmental thing is not something that is going to be sorted out by somebody out there. It has to start with us in our compounds, in our households. And it's the kind of a training that we give our children that is going to shape this world, or the kind of society we give to the next generation by managing our waste at home. I mean, being able to sort, to tell the kids that yes, you put this here and this is what you can do. If they grow up with that, I don't think they will ever depart from it. The little I've discussed with people who are into entrepreneurship, you always find that they always resorted to things that they saw their parents doing. So it is our duty as women, because we are more at home and more at home with the children, to influence the kind of parts and even behaviors that they will take up.
Wow, so Sam, I'm very humbling. Thank you so very much for the inspiration. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Thank you for inspiring communities. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. Please don't forget to like our pages. Don't forget to tune in to Mama FM 101.7. Don't forget to go to Native Voices International, to Native TV International, and that is the YouTube channel, and to the Celebrating Womanhood Festival Facebook page. Thank you very much.